For over 40 years, nearly 150,000 customers and over 30,000 channel partners spanning the globe have trusted ArcServe to strengthen their data resilience, recover lost assets, and ensure business continuity. With a unified approach to data protection and recovery, world-class technical support, and the lowest total cost of ownership, ArcServe helps businesses defend and, most importantly, recover their data from any situation. Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Massey. I'm the America's VP of Sales for ArcServe. Thank you for attending our latest segment of Beyond the Arc, where we're talking about data protection on a budget, how to deal with limited resources. This talk will not be any type of sales pitch, but rather it'll be a discussion on industry trends and the effect that it has on our partners and our customers. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Now, data protection, in my career, often has taken the back seat. If there's not anything sexy about data protection, right? So we're trying to bring sexy back a little bit, say that tongue in cheek. But what the the issue sometimes is that we are at a point where, yeah, of course, we need new storage, and we get these nice, brand new SANs and servers and all that good stuff. And then often, what we see is, as an afterthought, data protection. Your backup and recovery. However, to a certain extent, and from my point of view, and not just my point of view being at ArcServe, but my point of view from my entire career, data protection might be the most important piece, the most important component in that whole infrastructure. And the reason is that it is protecting what you deem as priceless, right? So data is for an organization, data is their most important asset. And that asset, without the data, it makes it very, very hard for organization to conduct business, to be able to roll with that. So what does that mean for you? If, as you're a network administrator, you're IT director, you're a CTO or CIO, and you have this budget, and of course budgets are always finite. We always have, it's limited. We never have just the blank check to be able to do that. We never have. I've never met somebody in the IT department that says, "Oh, we've got more people than we need in order to support the information technology infrastructure." Right? I never have heard any of that. So we always have, certainly, constraints that are placed on us to be able to, how we manage, how we end up working towards the goal of putting together the IT to all of our users in the most affordable, cost-effective way. All the while, we need to make sure that we're protecting our organization from, certainly, bad actors, from other types of disaster, user error, fire, flood, tornado, tsunami, earthquake, etc. So really, the task is daunting. Number one, we need to first identify data protection is crucial. It is very crucial. And sometimes, as I mentioned, it is that afterthought. We're not thinking about, hey, we're adding, all of these different types of services onto our network, without realizing what kind of impact that's going to be, certainly to other areas, whether it's storage. And then that also rolls further downhill, where we say, all right, now we have to be able to protect that data. So I think the first thing is, and this is a common theme that we talk about over the last several months, is making sure that we have adequate planning and crucial planning, right? So we're looking at business continuity planning, we're looking at disaster recovery planning, because that disaster recovery plan, especially when you look at the terms, and we all know at least two of them, the recovery time objective, recovery point objective, right? Recovery time objective is how quickly are we going to be able to bring the systems back up. Recovery point objective is how much data can we stomach to lose in if we endure an event, right? So those two pieces that are there. And then finally, we also have, there's another term that's done in business continuity and disaster recovery planning called MTD, which stands for maximum tolerable downtime. And tolerable downtime, when you're looking at like recovery time objective, recovery point objective, both of those are objectives, right? It doesn't necessarily that you mean that you always meet your objective, but that's what you're saying is, hey, we can only sustain, we want to make sure that all of our systems are back up in the midst of a disaster, a ransomware attack, whatever, within 1 hour, 3 hours, 10 hours, 24 hours, whatever, right? The maximum tolerable downtime, however, is actually, that's your hard line in the sand. That's what you say is, if we are down for this amount of time, it's going to severely impact our business. And that's kind of a very scary place to be, right? Because what happens, and I've seen this time and time again, let's just talk about, the scenario I'll give you is the Windows patches that are coming along, right? So the Windows patches, patch Tuesday, you come in, you start patching, you reboot some machines, and the machines don't come back up, right? And so as an IT person, you think, oh, okay, I can work on this, boom, boom, and you're trying to work on it, and then all of a sudden, that maintenance period starts to get less and less time left, right? And then you go on into beyond the maintenance period because you're trying to bring the systems back up. Yet, what's happening is that you haven't necessarily communicated to the disaster recovery business continuity team, or the point person for that, to say, hey, we've got this issue. So it's really, the maximum tolerable downtime is typically once a disaster is declared. um, Actually, strike that. We're live, so I'm going to strike that for a second. The recovery time objective, recovery point objective, is based on when a disaster is ultimately declared. The maximum tolerable downtime actually happens when the incident begins, right? So if your recovery time objective for this super critical, humongous server is going to be 12 hours because it's terabyte or 2 terabytes, or maybe it's longer than 12 hours because it's 5 terabytes or 8 terabytes in length, and your maximum tolerable downtime is only 10 hours, right? That whole troubleshooting point, when you identify, oh, there is an issue, but I'm going to try to do this, but you haven't declared that disaster, you might then encroach that MTD. You might encroach that maximum tolerable downtime. So that becomes a little bit crucial as we do that. So getting back to I went just a little bit on a road trip there, but getting back to the question. So you've got a limited budget, you've got limited resources, right? So resources, human resources, et cetera. So how do you manage that? Well, the first thing is number one, you need those disaster plans. You need the business continuity plans. And the second thing I would really strongly say is you need to test, right? By testing, you know what it's going to take in order to get the systems back up and running, and the services back going to your, not only to your internal users, but also to your customers, right? And by testing, you're going to be able to see, are you able to make those benchmarks that you're able to make, right? And if the answer is no, and you have this well documented, and you know exactly, hey, here's what's going to happen. We declare a disaster, but because of our resources, our human resources, because of the systems and the way that they've been designed, we cannot be able to do that. Then that should be a flag, a red flag for you then to make a justification, and then you need to go to leadership and say, listen, here is really a scenario that could be really adverse to us, right? This scenario that is doing it. And so perhaps we can get more budget, perhaps we can get the type of systems that you need in order to bring things up and running at a quicker time, right? The other piece is, 20 years ago, um, when we were backing up a terabyte or two of data at the most, right? That was a huge environment. You might be able to think about, all right, we're backing everything up, right, all at once. So we're going to always back. We've got data. We're going to get that backed up. Um, our very, very first Beyond the Arc session back with Aftab Alam, Aftab talked about not all data is created equal, right? So when we look at all of our data, there is some data that is crucial, and there's some data that isn't, right? Just frankly isn't. In fact, there might be some data that is so expendable that we don't need to back that up at all. So when we're thinking about resources, that might be a way that we can help gain the resources when you're on a limited budget, limited staff, to be able to do that by making sure that we are adequately assessing every component of our data, and we're categorizing it of, this is critical data, right? This is important data, right? And this is important, but data that but but can be, I think about archival data and stuff like that. The end of the world wouldn't be if we lost it, or if we weren't able to get it up right away. And then there's data that might be insignificant. And then what we can do is we can design our disaster plan around those specific different benchmarks to be able to do that, right? So we're able to work it out. Now, here's the flip side of that. The flip side of that adds a lot of complexity into your disaster recovery, right? Into your whole disaster recovery practice. So that is why when we're looking at DR plans, we're looking at the way that we're designing it. We need it holistically to make sure that we're able to do it. And we need to make sure of what is the type of labor that's going to need to be involved. What kind of human resources do we need in order to recover this data, should we need to? We get hit by ransomware, tomorrow. And so we basically, everything is encrypted, everything is gone, right? What is it going to take from a human resource standpoint? What is it going to take from even a design, software design, or the data protection design standpoint in order to get us back up? And then, we can put dollar figures on that. And certainly, again, as we look at being able to recover, it's very important. Probably one of the most important things that the leadership in the IT department, the IT area, one of the most important things is to have an accurate assessment of what the data looks like, right? And how much that data is worth. And if there is a misalignment within that of what it's worth, and how we're protecting it, and how we would be able to ultimately recover. And by the way, you should have all of these statistics, because you are constantly, testing, and you're testing the plan and testing the backups and making sure that you absolutely know what it's going to take to come back up and running. Then you can have the hard facts that can go into leadership and say, listen, your data is at risk right here, and here are the risks that we have. And if we were to encounter, some type of adverse event, okay, and that could be a regional event, that could be a localized event, that could be a ransomware attack or some other cybersecurity attack, that could be a fire, flood, or whatever, right? If we have some type of adverse um, event, then we may not be able to get us up in time to hit that maximum tolerable downtime, which means that it's going to cost us a lot more money in the long run in order to do that restoration of systems. Again, as we look at this, we always are under some type of budget constraints. We always will have, you know, priorities of the business that where they have to make the hard decision. But it's really important for everybody in the IT realm, right, to make sure that you are advocating and respectfully, pushing back and making sure that leadership knows what those adverse risks are and what it will be able to take to accomplish it. And when you again, when you're going through there, I kind of alluded this, but you want to make sure that you have everything, certainly documented as far as your testing methodology, your testing plans, what it takes, so you can actually give them a specific report to say, listen, if this happens, this is how long it will take for us to restore the systems back to a state where we can continue to perform our services to our customers and to our employees, right? Now, there's layers of this. I probably oversimplify this a bit, so it all would depend on what type of impact the disaster is, right? So if it's a cybersecurity attack, if they just get the local backups, but you have the offsite backups and you're able to quickly be able to do that, that's great. You know, we've seen sometimes where folks are actually going in and actually not just getting the local, but they're attacking that offsite backup too, which actually then convolutes and makes it a lot more challenging. And hopefully your disaster plan ends up being able to accommodate that. So, in quick summary, we're all under resource constraints, and we need to make sure that we have the right amount of resources in order to perform the function in the event that something adverse, something bad, something horrible happens, like a ransomware attack. And if that happens, then at least you'll know you'll be able to recover from this particular amount of time. Um, Otherwise, you put the organization at risk of not only losing money, but potentially the longer it goes before you're able to recover, the more risk there is that the company doesn't survive. And ultimately, we want you to be able to survive. So thanks again for attending this week's session of Beyond the Arc. Protect what's priceless, and remember, data resilience doesn't just happen.